cement, which has been a darling of the market, an order coming in from the CCI, which essentially upholds the original order. We're talking about a total penalty of 6,300 crore across the industry, and a lot of the listed companies, including the giants like Ultratech, etc., have been named once again. We've got Rohit Natrajan of IDBI Capital Markets joining in. Rohit, what do you think, and what sort of an initial reaction would you expect on these stocks, which are sitting at very heady levels?
See, this news is already, the amount is already well known, and it's already a matter of sub judice. Though Compact has earlier said that this matter, the levy, should be looked at. And from what I can learn from you, that CCI has upheld that amount. So this will go into a further litigation and a long-drawn process, rather than coming out with a black and white conclusion saying that this could turn out to be a penalty amount. So it will take its own course of time, is what I feel in the first instance when I look at this amount. Yes, there will be a negative bias in the short term, and these names, that whatever you said, and Ultratech, all those names will have a negative bias in the near term.
Okay, Rohit, stay on with us, because we have an industry representative also joining in. And essentially, it's not even just companies alone. Even the industry body has been slapped with a small fine. It's not a very big amount, but nevertheless, a token fine has been levied even on the industry body. Sanjay Ladiwala, chairman of the Cement Stockists and Dealers Association, is joining in. Sanjay, so this is some strong stuff coming in from the CCI all over again. They've upheld almost every single rupee of the original amount. I'll just name some of the companies. We're talking about around 1,147 crores on ACC, over 1,160 crores on some of the other companies. We're talking about Century, we're talking Binani, India Cements, etc. Your first reactions?
Well, first and foremost, we don't know the fine print yet, but we do know that the penalty was imposed much earlier and it had been sent for review. And obviously, the earlier order has been upheld. So it is bad news for the companies. They were quite optimistic that this would be set aside, but apparently it isn't so. So yes, it will affect the bottom line in the near future. Not that it is more sort of a rap on the knuckles rather than a very major punishment, but it sure will set bells ringing.
Sanjay, but this is not the end of the story, right? I mean, eventually, because the amount involved is $1 billion plus, this will go all the way maybe to the top court, the Supreme Court.
Well, yes, I think so. I think they will have to go to the Supreme Court, and this is just the beginning. But it is a jolt, because they were thinking that maybe at this level itself, it would be set aside, because most of the evidence which is there is circumstantial, you know. So on those bases, they were quite hopeful that it would be, but apparently not so. So, of course, it will go into appeal, but it isn't augur too well.
Yeah. Rohit, if you're still there, you know, when Compact in December last year, in 2015, had set aside the cartelization case, they said that CCI needs to refund 10% of the $1 billion amount, 6,300 crore amount, which was paid as deposit, which these companies had paid as deposit initially. Any clarity on that? I mean, did these companies get that refund, or is the money still with the CCI?
No, I don't have any clarity on this particular aspect, because I remember that news which said the CCI would have 3 months time to rework on this particular amount. But I'm not privy to that information, whether the deposit amount, will it be refunded back. I mean, that sort of clarity, I don't have it offhand. But yes, if at all, if there is an amount being said in that way, I think there could be a possibility in a refund also cannot be ruled out.
Refund cannot be ruled out. You know, if this fine has to be paid, has contingent provisioning, etc., been made by these companies, or you think?
No, I don't think this will be. See, first of all, as we said, this is not clearly a black and white amount that will come out as a one-time event as such, because this will get into further litigation. Nevertheless, even if they have to make a provision, I think they can, because it's not going to be a major dent on their bottom line. Because, yes, the uncertainty amount. I mean, in which particular, when will they take the provisioning and all those things? There is certain clarity that we would still require from the company side.
Maybe not a dent on the bottom line, though. I mean, one can argue we're talking about amounts of over 1,100 crores in certain cases, big companies like Ultratech, etc. But Rohit, what about the sentiment around these stocks? Would you expect a knee-jerk reaction? Because we've seen, I mean, a dream cement rally play out over the last 6-7 months now. So do you expect any sort of rating changes, or maybe some reworking of stock target prices, or will the market kind of take it in its stride? Because this is going to be a long, drawn-out battle.
See, what I think is that the current flavor, if at all, if somebody wants to play the infrastructure theme, everybody likes to look at the cement stocks rather than going for the conventional construction contractors or maybe the infrastructure asset owners. So cement is always going to be the theme that is, if you have to play the India infrastructure story, cement is always going to be. Though the structural story remains intact. Yes, these kind of dents, they do come into play. There is no doubt about it. They will certainly have a negative bias maybe in the short run, but nothing changes the direction of the dial with this news.
All right, Rohit, thank you very much. Sanjay, appreciate you joining in with that perspective. Okay, we also have Mr. HP Ranina now joining in. He's a well-known corporate lawyer. Mr. Ranina, thank you for your time, evening. Would you like to tell us how do you see this progressing from here? So, in December of 2015, the matter, of course, goes back all the way to 2012. But late last year, the COMPAT, the appellate body, had set aside the order and given CCI 3 months to carry out detailed investigations and come out with a report. Now we get this. Where next, sir?
Well, it means that there is a lot of substance in what was done earlier. If the penalty has now been upheld, it only shows that obviously they've done the investigation, and obviously the companies have entered into cartelization, which as a result of which they made undue profits, which now the Competition Commission wants them to pay back as well by way of penalties. Of course, the cement companies can challenge it. They can always go to the High Court and challenge the ruling. So that's where the things will stand. And it doesn't mean anything. It means that if the factual position has been established, that will be very difficult for them to succeed even before the High Court.
So, Mr. Ranina, that was just the small clarity I was sort of seeking. Is the COMPAT in the picture at all right now, or do you think companies will not directly move to the High Court?
Well, they will go to the appellate tribunal. They can, of course, go back. There's no harm in going back. They will try that if they want to. But they can also go on a writ to the High Court if they so wish. If there's a patent error of law, then they can go on a writ. But that's a risk because the High Court may entertain the risk or may dismiss the writ petition. So that's something which they'll have to see. Obviously, they'll study the order, see what are the prospects of either going to the appellate tribunal or directly on a writ to the High Court.
Since the amounts involved are pretty large, would you expect this essentially lands up in the Supreme Court, sir?
Yes, of course. Either way, it will end up in the Supreme Court. Initially, now, if the cement companies go in case they get a favorable order, then the government will go to the Supreme Court. So this is either way, it will certainly land up in the Supreme Court.
Mr. Ranina, thank you very much for taking our call and getting us that perspective on the cement issue per se. So it'll be the cartelization issue. It comes, the noise keeps coming and going. Back in 2007, if you remember, cement stocks, that was the big talking point, the government wanting to control cement prices. And back then they had cut import duty, banned exports, and they had done all kinds of things. So I don't think that is a possibility now, in terms of the government wanting to control prices. If you remember, Nitin Gadkari on our infrastructure panel a few days back had very proudly said that we are able to procure cement for our projects at a much lower than market cost, market price. So I think that bit is sorted. Back then the issue was, actually price cartelization, etc. But I think we are out of that period, at least now. The numbers are all on your screen. But as Mr. Ranina said, one way or the other, it's not the end of the story.
You know,
this will go on all the way to the top court.
I just want to recap some of the language that the CCI has used in its order. The whole point of going back, Compat saying, you know, this needs to go back to CCI and they need to work out a new mechanism of dealing with these issues. I mean, today's order and the language that has been used doesn't seem to sort of suggest that the CCI is willing to go easy at all, because they've upheld the entire penalty. And plus basically said, and I'm reading out from the order, that cement companies use the platform provided by the CMA, which is the association, the industry association, shared details relating to prices, capacity utilization, production and dispatch, and thereby restricted production and supplies in the market. I mean, it's a very clear, scathing order. Of course, the companies will probably take due legal recourse.
And this is a detailed order, by the way. If you remember, in October or September, CREDAI, which is the real estate body, had come out and accused certain industry players. I think players included Lafarge, Ultratech, etc., and said, well, we aren't going to buy cement from these companies because prices have gone up too much. And there's, again, the same thing, cartelization, collusion, etc. But anyway, this is not the end of the story. We'll hear more on this and more perspective as we go on.